From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Winter wheat harvest is moving at a blistering pace across much of the country.
You never gripe about rain, but this time of year, if you're a wheat farmer, you don't want to see a whole lot of it.
We check in on progress in Oklahoma. Could Mexico be changing its stance when it comes to importing U.S. GMO corn?
They still aren't for sure about GMO corn being safe.
As producer sentiment continues to take a dive.
The Ag Economy Barometer fell 3 points to a reading of 105 this month.
And the ag industry faces more job cuts right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. More layoffs are hitting the broader ag industry, this time a meat processor in Iowa. As we first told you online earlier this week, Smithfield Foods is announcing it's closing its ham boning facility in Altoona. The decision means 314 employees will lose their jobs. Smithfield says it's closing the facility and consolidating production at other locations in an effort to improve efficiencies in manufacturing. Now, the company says it will provide affected employees with information about opportunities at other Smithfield locations, along with severance packages. Now, Smithfield employs about 4,000 people in Iowa alone, but Iowa has been rocked lately by other layoffs, including at several John Deere plants. It announced 700 layoffs at facilities in the state earlier this year, and last week said it was laying off another 330 employees at plants in Davenport and Dubuque. Deere citing rising operational costs and declining market demand for those layoffs. And according to the just released Ag Economy Barometer, more producers are saying now is a bad time to make large investments. The monthly survey of producer sentiment conducted by Purdue University and the CME Group has an overall reading of 105 points. That's down 3 points from just a month ago and down 16 points compared to a year earlier. And a 5-point decline in the index of future expectations to a reading of 112 was responsible for that overall index decline.
When we ask producers what their biggest concerns are for the upcoming year, they continue to point to the risk of high input cost, followed by the risk of low crop and livestock prices, and then followed by rising interest rates. And when we look at the responses to this question in recent months, it's clear that more producers are becoming concerned about the impact of rising interest rates on their farm operation than what we saw earlier in the year.
Also interesting to note, in areas of the country where leasing of farmland for solar energy production is taking place, lease rates being offered continue to rise. This month, 69% of those who took part in the survey and who also report having a solar leasing discussion said they were offered a long-term solar lease rate of $1,000 per acre or more. Hurricane Beryl is on the move across the Caribbean Sea as a powerful Category 5 storm, but is expected to weaken at its current path. It's expected to take it near Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Now here you can see some of the damage left behind in Barbados. Beryl is the earliest Category 5 storm ever to form in the Atlantic, fueled by record warm waters. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us now. And Matt, here at home, there is still potential for flash flooding in portions of the Midwest.
Yeah, and that flooding potential, the flash flooding potential, stays over the same locations, right in between a weak trough digging across the United States and that ridge of high pressure back down here to the south. So that's why I get more of the yellow into Missouri, southern Illinois, also a little bit into Iowa as well, with about a 15 to 40% potential for some flooding coming up on Wednesday. Severe weather threat isn't zero, but it is relatively low. I'm not expecting widespread severe weather across the United States. I mean, there isn't a giant system coming through. It's a little bit more tame. The one thing we're concerned about, though, is what you have on your screen here. The flooding potential in this kind of setup. So that includes parts of the Dakotas back up into Minnesota, about a 15 to 40% chance of some flooding. And then also the green starts to take off back here along a boundary in and across Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and West Virginia and Kentucky. We may get about a 5 to 15% chance of some flooding. And Matt Meyer's corn is well beyond being knee-high by the 4th of July. That rhymed, not on purpose, but we'll go with it. In fact, he says there will be tassels, and by the 4th, for sure, growing some good-looking corn there in Nebraska. I'll have more on your good-looking forecast coming up in just a bit.
A report says Mexico's new incoming government will not curb imports of U.S. GMO yellow corn. One incoming cabinet member saying instead Mexico will focus on maintaining self-sufficiency with white corn. AgDay's Michelle Rook has been looking into this. And Michelle, this comes as U.S. officials and Mexico representatives just wrapped up a hearing over the proposed ban.
Right, and the trade case will continue because despite some of the media reports, there's been no formal resolution to the trade dispute between the U.S. and Mexico over GMO corn. In fact, U.S. corn farmers say they, along with the U.S. Trade Representative's office, are more determined than ever to see this case get over the finish line. The National Corn Growers Association releasing a statement saying the necessary action to roll back all of Mexico's existing actions to ban GMO corn have not been taken. So far, there have been only comments to the media by the incoming administration, including the ag minister and president, that Mexico would take GMO yellow corn from the U.S. while still staying self-sufficient on white corn.
But she's come out to still kind of follow in the past president's message that they still aren't for sure about GMO corn being safe. And, they mentioned, she mentioned that she would like to continue to import GMO corn, but that's only, as I would say, hearsay. We want it to be definite that they're accepting our GMO yellow corn, and she has not mentioned anything about accepting our GMO of white corn.
The presidential decree and ban have not been formally rescinded, nor has there been any assurances that the Mexican Congress will not advance related legislation. NCGA's position on this situation has not changed. They want the dispute settlement case to move forward as scheduled and look forward to a final report by the end of the year.
NCGA is still staying strong with our beliefs that what we've had done in the past, with having the decree of the panel from U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and giving our sides. And we still feel that we have a strong case and can win in the end on this, hopefully for the good news coming in November.
However, since Mexico declared the GMO ban, they have not backed away from buying U.S. corn and are our top export customer. They're a strong livestock producer and are currently facing drought, so this may have prompted the continued purchases. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Putting together a 4th of July holiday cookout? Well, the American Farm Bureau Federation says costs are at a record high. Its market basket survey finding an Independence Day cookout will cost $71.22 for 10 guests this year. That includes things like cheeseburgers, chicken breast, pork chops, homemade potato salad, strawberries, and ice cream. That's up 5% from 2023 and almost 30% higher than just 5 years ago. Meanwhile, Wells Fargo's Agri-Food Institute releasing some Independence Day food money savers. It reports home-cooked burgers are 3 times cheaper than dining out. It says the current cost of ingredients to prepare a quarter-pound hamburger with all the common fixings is $2.16 per burger, while quick service restaurants average $6.95 per burger. Researchers say for a party of 10, cooking burgers at home will save you nearly $50. Wells Fargo also says there are savings to be had whether you make your own potato salad or buy it at the store. While potato chip prices are up 2.7% over last year, iced tea is up 2.4%, ice cream up 3.3%. Corn, soybeans, and cattle all start Tuesday with a bounce higher, but did the trend hold? We'll talk markets coming up next. And later, we'll join harvest crews in Oklahoma as they race to bring in the winter wheat crop. Today in the country. Ag and rural living retailer Tractor Supply making an announcement this week about the future of several business initiatives. In an open letter, the company announcing plans to step away from what it calls non-business activities. It says that includes retiring its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives while still, quote, ensuring a respectful environment. Adding that instead, it will refocus on team member engagement, mentoring, networking, and supporting the business. Now, Tractor Supply, which bills itself as the country's largest rural lifestyle retailer, also said it's withdrawing its carbon emissions goals, opting to focus on water and conservation, and it plans to prioritize ag education, animal welfare, and veterans causes. Turnaround Tuesday was just what was needed to pull corn higher, and soybeans edged up as well. AgDay's Michelle Rook has more in markets now.
Well, grains ending mixed on Tuesday with the row crop slightly higher, wheat a bit lower. And Tom Fitzenmeyer is joining us with analysis. Tom, let's talk about the row crops slightly higher. So how much of that is just basically short covering, trying to relieve some of this oversold status in the market?
I think that's what most of it was. I mean, the momentum indicators did turn higher at the end of the trading day on Monday, so that helped a little bit. Like you said, we were oversold and needing a sort of correction here. Funds are heavily short. You're coming into what would be considered, I guess, what I call a quasi-long weekend with when we're closed Thursday, open Friday, but probably not a lot of volume. A lot of traders missing on Friday. So, we rallied up to kind of the top end on soybeans in particular of a downward trending channel and sort of hit that and fell away from it. Corn was sort of the victim of a weakness in the wheat market and in the crude oil market Tuesday. So, there's just not a lot there. There's not a lot of weather concerns. You've got plenty of moisture. You've got some heat coming in, but nothing that's particularly scary. They're saying that the average pollination date will be about the 15th or 19th, of July. And you look between now and then, there's not a lot in the dangerous coming in the weather forecasts.
And so the funds are already short. Are they just going to keep pushing short because they are comfortable and think rain makes grain?
I think rain makes grain, and the old axiom, keep doing what's working, and being short the corn and wheat bean market and the wheat market has been working really well for them. So something's going to happen to spook them out of that, and it's hard to imagine in the short run what that might be. I mean, demand might improve a little bit. The next WASDE report may show a little bump in export demand and a little bump in ethanol production, but not enough to offset the gains we probably got from the stocks and acreage number last week.
So that's going to make recovery pretty hard here in those markets. All right.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks for joining us. Tom Fitzenmeyer with Summit Commodity Brokerage, and we'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Here's a look at that updated drought monitor. So again, where we're going, the main concern is the flooding potential. And earlier, a few months ago, when we first started 2024, we were talking drought conditions back into Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, back into the Midwest. Since then, since about May, May and June, also start of July, lots of rain coming through, almost too much rain at times. So there's a look at that drought monitor. Again, most of the United States doing okay, not great, but okay. We're staying out of the extreme and the exceptional for a large portion of the United States. Back in here towards the parts of New Mexico and Texas, extreme to exceptional drought. Where we go from here, so we're expecting some tropical moisture to be in the Gulf of Mexico as we get into next week. So by the 4th of July, expect it to work into the Gulf of Mexico, near the Yucatan Peninsula. That's the barrel that I'm talking about, that tropical system. The tropical moisture settling in and across parts of the Gulf of Mexico by this weekend and into next week. That's why you start to see possibility of some wetter than normal conditions into Texas. Not necessarily a tropical system moving in there, but the moisture from it could work from the south to the north into those locations. And you see, we kind of got a split map here between those with wetter than normal conditions between the 7th and the 11th, and then back out here to the northwest once again, starting to dry out and heat up. As for that jet stream, so we start off on Wednesday and into the 4th of July. There's that little piece of energy. Now, if this was any stronger, we'd be talking about widespread severe weather with that upper level support. This is relatively shallow, so it's more about how much rain we can squeeze out of the atmosphere rather than a severe weather or widespread severe weather attached to that system. Still, there could be some stronger, if not severe, thunderstorms out there for the 4th of July as that moves through. By Friday and Saturday, pocket of cooler air back up here towards the north, and then a warm, if not hot conditions to the south and also off to the south and southwest. Again, that's the jet stream on Friday. Into the weekend we go. Now that shallow trough starts to work out, but that cooler air will be hanging around this weekend and into next. That's going to allow some of that tropical moisture to possibly sneak back up here towards the north and into Texas. What are we starting off with? Beaver Dam, Kentucky. Got some evening thunderstorms, high around 93. Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, partly cloudy, high around 84 degrees. Can you guess it? You guessed it. Beaver Dam, Pennsylvania, high around 84 degrees with some evening thunderstorms.
And later we're off to Oklahoma, where wheat farmers are rushing to bring in the harvest while dodging rainstorms in the country. Sprinklers could one day be required in animal housing facilities, which could impact the pork industry. The National Fire Protection Association adopting revisions at its annual meeting that would require sprinklers in ag facilities housing animals and regulated by EPA as medium or larger size concentrated animal feeding operations. Now, the revisions pushed by some animal rights groups, the National Pork Producers Council saying in a statement that over a decade ago, animal rights groups pushed for the same thing, and NPPC successfully appealed it, and it will appeal the decision again. The organization saying the new standards won't likely have any immediate impact as no major pork producing states have adopted them, but it says if it's fully implemented, it could impose significant costs on family farms. An Iowa man has learned how long he'll have to spend behind bars after being accused of swindling pork producers. Robert Bickerstaff of Rock Rapids, Iowa, was sentenced to 6 months in prison. Court documents say the 52-year-old pleaded guilty to one count of wire fraud in December. Now, the U.S. Attorney's Office says Bickerstaff worked as a regional manager for an Iowa livestock dealer between 2018 and 2021. They say he oversaw buying stations in Iowa, Minnesota, and South Dakota where he counted, classified, and weighed swine. It's alleged Bickerstaff personally lowered the weights, numbers, and classifications of hogs at the stations or directed others to do it. They also say he created fraudulent sort sheets and scale tickets for hogs. Well, up next, the challenges and the joys of harvest. We'll visit with a farm family in Oklahoma to learn how wheat harvest is going as the state races to bring in the crop. Back in the Southern Plains, winter wheat harvest is rolling along quickly. The latest crop progress numbers from USDA show 54% of the crop is now cut. That's 15 points ahead of the 5-year average. 87% is harvested in Texas and 80% in Kansas. Crews are just arriving in Nebraska, where 13% is now in the bin. Meanwhile, in Oklahoma, winter wheat harvest is done. The fast pace didn't come without a few weather challenges, as Elizabeth Hockett of Oklahoma State's Sunup TV reports.
Rain. A blessing for 51 weeks of the year. But that 52nd week, it can be quite the nuisance. And it wouldn't be an Oklahoma wheat harvest if it wasn't doing the exact opposite of what wheat producers like Frank Postbushel want it to.
We've got chances of rain coming off and on, and luckily we've kind of missed a few showers around, and so we're looking for maybe some sunny days and a little bit of wind to dry things out.
The humidity and the moisture has not been favorable to combining conditions. You never gripe about rain, but this time of year, if you're a wheat farmer, you don't want to see a whole lot of it.
With storm clouds looming over the fields, it's hard to forget the effects it's had on the past few years.
You know, we had a lot of 57, 58 pound wheat last year, not very much of it. We've had a couple bad years with not very good yield and a bad drought last year, plus some hail.
Drought and hail. Seems like the wheat and the weather don't ever get along too well. But maybe this year they'll forget their differences.
There's reports of anywhere from 30 to 75, 78 bushel wheat already. And there is some good wheat in the county. Depending upon exactly where the field was located and if you was under the right rain cloud.
In Kingfisher County, I'm Elizabeth Hokett.
And our thanks to Elizabeth Hokett of Sunup TV for sharing that story with us. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a safe and happy 4th of July.